Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name's Steve. Today we're going to be going over, I think we've got 10 running backs in this video. And these are running backs that I like more than you do as a whole via the ADP. So running backs that I have ranked higher than ADP, ranked more than 5 spots higher than the ADP. Didn't really look at anybody with 5 or fewer spots difference. And obviously, always interested in what you guys agree with, what you disagree with in the comments. So let me know about that. There's also links in the description, a link in the description to the website, www.theffforge, where you can find my rankings, which do get updated throughout the entirety of the off season. And you can come and help, you can come and join us for some live drafting on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings is the plan as of the time of recording this. So let's just start off here at the top. That's not the right guy. This is the right guy. Nope. There we go. That's our first guy here, Austin Ekeler. I have him ranked 37th overall, average draft position going 49th overall. And Ekeler finished as the running back 29 last season on an offense that many people think will improve from last year. Sign me up for that. Obviously, I am not as high on him as his running back 29 performance last season, but I do believe that running back 49 is too low for a guy who has a really nice receiving back role in that Washington offense, and that's a role that's not going anywhere. So that's going to be a part of the offense again this year. I think he's, a really solid flex kind of guy to be having on your roster. That's going to bring us on to the next target in Nick Chubb. Look, we're talking about my running back 44. ADP, though, all the way back at running back 55. I think that a lot of people are underestimating the potential this season for Nick Chubb. And I could totally eat crow for this take, which, that'll happen. But I think that there is a world where Nick Chubb is a running back 2 this season. Not too unlike Raheem Mostert's 2023 season, which caught everyone but myself completely off guard. Still a little surprised by how look, I didn't expect Raheem Mostert to have quite as good of a season as he did that year, nor do I expect Nick Chubb to have that good of a season. And of course, part of the reason for that is going to be the fact that, Joe Mixon is still in Houston after all. But this is an offensive staff that is going to try to establish the run, and then they're going to try to continue to run after that. And they have a very good defense, which should allow them to do that quite a bit, in a lot of games. So I do think there's going to be a fair amount of groundwork opportunity here. And I think that Nick Chubb's going to be the one to take the first carry in a lot of games. And I think that Joe Mixon will be the RB2, the third down back, the 4-minute kind of guy, 2-minute definitely kind of guy, and might take a couple of drives away from Nick Chubb throughout the time. But, man, obviously we know the kind of talent that Nick Chubb was prior to his severe injury. Could he return to that this season? We'll see. If he does return to that this season, then I think, he'll be a good value wherever we're taking him. That's going to bring us on to my next target here in a rookie, Quinshon Judkins, going 25th amongst running backs so far this offseason. I have him ranked 16th. The Cleveland Browns coaching staff remains the same staff, which has had one of the most prolific rushing offenses with Nick Chubb for a while. They were forced to back off of that due to injuries and due to the personnel that they had on the team in recent years. But in a day and age where the entirety of the NFL is having a rushing attack resurgence, you don't think that the team who drafted Judkins with the 4th pick of the 2nd round, and then they went and took another running back in the 4th round, you don't think that team's trying to get back to the good old days? They're going to run the ball, and probably well, and probably a lot. I am betting on Judkins. Yes, there's definitely a cap on his ceiling due to the quarterback and the overall offensive situation in Cleveland, but I have pretty high hopes, and I am willing to take a chance and bet on those hopes, obviously based on that ranking, We'll see, but I think ADP, I think 25th is a little bit too low for him. That's going to bring us on to Rhamondre Stevenson over there, my running back 32, going as the 40th running back currently. And as of right now, he is the starting running back on the New England Patriots. Could that change? Of course. But he is also a good receiving back, which does help and helps to raise that floor a little bit, worst case scenario here. And so the question could be asked, am I not putting enough stock into TreVeyon Henderson, overtaking him at some point, at any point? Maybe not, but I don't think that you're putting enough stock into him being the starting running back by taking him as, by having him as the ADP 40 running back. Last year was bad. I do get that for him. I know that for a fact, actually. But Stevenson has proven that he's a better back than his production was in recent history. That's going to bring us on to my 19th ranked running back in Kaleb Johnson. Going back at ADP 26, I think that the Steelers' offense will be better than they were last year. I also think that Kaleb Johnson is a perfect fit for an Arthur Smith rushing attack. I am well aware that I am banking on things to go well for Kaleb Johnson, given how highly I have him ranked. I don't necessarily think that this is drafting him at his ceiling, however, but I will admit that his floor is certainly much, much lower than this. I won't be targeting Kaleb Johnson, but I will be reluctantly excited about the possibility of what kind of value that I'm getting on him if I'm drafting him back at running back 26 in any drafts that I were to get him around there. We'll see if that happens or not, but nonetheless, I think that it'll be a good value for whoever gets him, and I generally speaking, would be willing to take him a little bit higher than that. That's to bring us on to Brian Robinson. You remember this guy, right? He's my 23rd ranked running back. He's currently going as the 30th running back off the board. Was Brian Robinson disappointing for some in fantasy football last year? Yes, he was. I think some were expecting more from him, but I don't get where this sudden hate for the rushing attack in Washington has come from this offseason. Brian was a top 24 running back in fantasy football last year. Aren't we expecting this offense to take a step forward in year two? That's what I hear a lot of people saying, under the second-year quarterback. I should say in year two under Jaden Daniels. Maybe we're not, because we've got him back at ADP 30. We've got Austin Ekeler also quite low, that he was featured on this list. Did they draft a really fun running back prospect in this year's draft? Well, yes, they did. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is an exciting young man that I think that Washington might have gotten a steal with at the point in the draft that they got him. But where do they get him? 245th overall. I don't think that he's much of a threat to Brian Robinson at this point in their careers. Brian Robinson is not the most exciting draft pick. I agree with that. But I will be happy to take him if you leave him on the board for long enough in my drafts. That's to bring us on to Rachaad White, going at running back 45. I have him ranked 38th in my rankings. Rachaad White was a borderline RB2 last season, 21st via average fantasy points per week, and 27th via my consistency rankings. Look, I have him as my running back 38. I, too, expect more Bucky Irving this year than last year. I, too, am concerned about how a new offensive coordinator will deploy these two and how much that might, I would say, negatively impact Rachaad White more so than positively impact him. But at a certain point, he could be a massive value, and I'm already happy to take that shot at him at running back 38. Leave him on the board for a round or two longer? All right, let's do this. So, I'm willing to take a shot on Rachaad White, thinking that I'm hoping I get a guy who I'm going to feel comfortable putting into my flex when need to be, and, of course, filling that running back when need be. That's going to bring us on to my 21st ranked running back in Aaron Jones, going currently as the 27th running back. Last running back on the list, I do have a list of honorary mentions, just a quick cover at the end here. So, Aaron Jones, he was a top 20 running back last season. I think he's going to be relied upon very heavily this year with J.J. McCarthy in at quarterback. This offense will probably run at a higher ratio than they did last year to help ensure that J.J. McCarthy is successful, to help take some of the load off of him. I know that they brought in Jordan Mason, who had a fine year with San Francisco last year. In fact, he was fantastic for my own and many of my viewers' fantasy football teams. But honestly, I'm expecting a better year from Aaron Jones in 2025. Jordan can come in and he can give some relief to Aaron Jones, keeping him a bit fresher, which should increase his efficiency, if nothing else. He's a receiving back, which always helps, Aaron Jones that is, and especially when you have a young quarterback coming in at J.J. McCarthy being that dump-off option for him to go to, could result in some real nice targeting numbers for him. I also trust this coaching staff. I think that running back 27 is going to be getting him at an absolute steal if you get him there. Like, I don't see him performing worse than that. That's for sure. Then we've got the honorary mentions for this video. Guys to keep your eyes on, kind of one or the other here. First of all, is going to be Zach Moss. He's going quite late in draft, like undrafted completely. I do get that, but there is a possibility. Like, I'm probably not drafting him. I get it. There is a possibility he resumes the role that he had last year, which was, flex-ish worthy. The team didn't want to give the full workload to Chase Brown. He goes down, then they do give the full workload to him. Chase Brown had some inefficiencies in his game that they might feel that Zach Moss brings back. So there's going to be a role for Zach Moss. I don't think it's quite to the same extreme as last year, but also in the event that there's an injury there in Cincinnati, that's a pretty high-powered offense to have the starting running back on, and he would be the starting running back in that situation. Next up on this honorary mentions list is going to be Jordan James of San Francisco. Personally, I think that he is the backup to Christian McCaffrey. I think he's the third running back on the depth chart, but if Christian McCaffrey goes down, I see Isaac Rendo, their number 2 running back probably, as the change of pace back for both of these backs in either situation. I don't think he's the guy that they want to get out there to plod the harder yards, run between the tackles as often as they would maybe trust Jordan James. This does require a little bit of Jordan James being everything that some people thought he would be, but I was a pretty big fan of him. He's coming out of the same school as Bucky Irving, and honestly, I saw a lot of Bucky Irving-ness in his on his tape this offseason. That's going to bring us on to Devin Neal out of New Orleans. This is really just to keep your eyes on. This is even during the season, if Alvin Kamara goes down at any point, I'm going to give him a shot, in the very least, in terms of adding him onto my roster if I have a spot for him. A lot of people really, really liked him coming into the draft this year. He goes later than a lot of people thought he would. That happened with a lot of running backs because it was a very stacked running back class. Nonetheless, I think more likely we're talking long-term for Devin Neal, but obviously with an injury, I think he's the guy who comes in as the Alvin Kamara replacement. I thought that was a really nice draft pick from New Orleans. Let's bring us on to another draft pick I really liked much later in the draft too, Rachaad Smith, going to Kansas City Chiefs. And there's definitely a role that I think he's going to come right into as the receiving back, the Jerick McKinnon back in that offense. Probably bring that on maybe later season. But there's also, coming off of a year where a guy who he very much comped to, similarly coming out of college, and Tyrone Tracy out of the New York Giants last season. Look, if Rachaad Smith has a similar acquisition to the NFL, if he develops that quickly, I think that he could become the starting running back in Kansas City. And same with if there's an injury there, of course. Just a guy who I'm keeping my ear to the ground, listening to what the news is this off season, just seeing what the feedback is from him in camp and everything. Once again, guy we're keeping our eye on. Jaden Blue is the next one. Honorary mention as much as keeping an eye on here. I think personally, there's a 50% chance or better even. I think he might win the starting job in Dallas, in which case we're taking him far, far too low, and I have him ranked much more appropriately. So keep your eye on that one. I don't know that it's a guarantee for Javonte Williams. And then same with Cam Skattebo here, actually. I think a pretty high chance that he's the starting running back, the guy going between the tackles, and then Tyrone Tracy can be the more efficient third down back, change of pace back for this offense. I don't know why else you bring in Cam Skattebo of all people. He's not somebody you want to... He doesn't need to sit on the bench and learn the game more. You just throw him out there and he does what he's going to do. And his career might be short because of how he plays. So, once again, get him out there and run the tires down. I think would be the game plan with a guy like Cam Skattebo, with some of the fears, once again, of the longevity of his career that the NFL had coming into his draft. So were those all rookies outside of Zach Moss, right? So keep an eye on the rookies here. There are varying opportunities for each of them that I think might surpass their current average draft positions. There you go. That's it for the running back targets video. Let me know what you agreed with, disagreed with, and yeah, do the YouTube things. They're always appreciated. Peace out.